Hi, everybody. I'm Celia Smith. I'm the CEO of Luminato Festival Toronto. And today I want to introduce you to Jessica Litwin, who's our new Chief Development Officer, who just joined us at the beginning of January. So welcome, Jessica.
Thank
and
you.
What we're going to do today is introduce you to everybody and get a little bit of an idea of your background and what you're going to do with us here at Luminato. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about where you come from and what you've been up to before joining us.
Sure. Well, I'm newly arrived in Toronto. However, I am Canadian and I grew up in Ottawa. But for the last 10 years, I've been living in London in the UK, working for a major museum and also in the consulting space with fundraising and sponsorship. And I've been a bit around the block before that. I was at the Getty Foundation in Los Angeles for a while, and also in Ottawa for several years, working for the Canadian Conference of the Arts in the lobbying and government relations space. So I've touched on different ways of funding and supporting arts organizations, and I'm just really thrilled to be back home and in Toronto working with Luminato.
So why Toronto? Why now?
Oh, so a few reasons. In London, I was working for the National Portrait Gallery, and we had just finished off a major capital project. And when you kind of round up a capital project, you start thinking, okay, what's next? Because it's such a kind of completion and final moment. So I had already thought I wanted to kind of move on to my next challenge, my next adventure. And then COVID came along and really made us rethink what our priorities are, what's important to us. And we started looking at Toronto because we wanted to be home with our families and our community, and be able to be in an equally exciting, if not more exciting city for us, and still have challenges and a really dynamic arts and culture scene. So Toronto was kind of the obvious choice to be able to come home and be close to family, but also be really excited about where we're living.
Great. So you've taken on this new big job with us in the middle of a pandemic. So what's it like to be, a seasoned development professional in the middle of a pandemic? What's going on?
So, well, we've been dealing with this for almost a year now. So I've been working remotely since last March, and I, walked out of my office one day in London from the National Portrait Gallery and never went back. So it's not new. We've been doing it for a while, and I haven't been in an office with colleagues for almost a year. And there's early on, I think we were trying to scramble and figure out what was going to happen and waiting for the kind of floor to fall out from under us. We were really worried about funding, but actually we found that those funders who are really passionate about the arts and dedicated to seeing a healthy cultural sector after the pandemic and stuck with us and really stayed close to us. And we were able to kind of push through. So I think that, the cultural sector as a whole has been really dependent on government support, but also on the support of its closest friends and family and those who are really passionate about the arts. And it's been really heartening to see funders stick with arts organizations through this crisis, really. And I think what we had to do really quickly, at least at the gallery, was pivot so that we could put on content and produce new opportunities to engage with our donors in weird and wonderful ways that we had never had to do before, because it's a very, person-to-person, relationship-driven side of the arts. And so we were doing in-conversations over Zoom and art therapy classes and mindfulness to support people at home who are maybe alone or had their own caring responsibilities. So it's been an adventure, and I think has actually pushed at least me and my team, where I was based before, to be more creative than we had ever had to be before, and more nimble and agile, and think about innovative solutions that we hadn't been forced to do before. So it was a very kind of catalyst for change that maybe sometimes a very slow moving arts sector had to, at pace, really change how it was working.
What do you think, though, the role of a patron of the arts is, normally, and then also in the midst of this crisis? How would you describe that?
So for me, it's all about relationships and forging really strong bonds with those who are passionate about the arts. And I think there's a kind of very traditional, arts audience and people who really feel love and feel joyful and kind of are filled up by interacting with the arts. So that kind of patron, I think, is someone who isn't necessarily looking for the free glass of champagne when they come to the party, or the free croissant, the breakfast. They're looking to really feel filled up and completed and feel joy from experiencing the arts. And I think that's a real, patron that wants to support the development and the commissioning and the delivery of new arts.
So when we offered you this job to come and join us and lead the development team at Luminato at this moment, why did you say yes to us?
That's a great question. I think I've worked in a very tangible space for the last few years. It's, bricks and mortar, keeping the lights on, keeping security in post, keeping the paintings on the wall, well conserved. And that's, a very measurable impact. And I wanted to, with a new challenge, move into a space where I could be funding something that was much more dynamic and could really get into communities, could cross different lines. That could be indoors and outdoors, could be online and in person, could be all different kinds of media, all different kinds of arts disciplines. It gives us, as a fundraiser, so many more stories to talk about, and so many more projects to support. So it was really exciting to think that I might be able to talk to donors about such a variety of programming versus something very kind of static. So that was the real excitement about Luminato that I couldn't wait to get involved in. And the other thing is that it's a leaner organization. I worked in a very, nothing against museums, but a very kind of bureaucratic institution, 200-year-old organization. And to work with an organization where I could work across teams more nimbly, get to know the programmers, get to know the artists and the artists in residence, that just offered all kinds of new opportunities for me as a fundraiser, because I could just forge so many different types of relationships. And that's really what I'm here, is about developing meaningful relationships across the sector.
Fantastic. So those of you watching us may want to get in touch with Jessica to find out more. So how do we do that?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Jessica Litwin. You can see my name at the bottom, just search for me. You can connect with me via Luminato, jlitwin@luminato.com. And I hope to hear from you and to start conversations, and hopefully and soon be able to meet in person and get to know everyone out there who's a lover and a supporter of the festival.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank
Be
you.
well, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.